Hey there, it's Belinda Colleen, and I'm here to talk to you about five top reselling game changers. And some of these are big, and some of them will just make you happier, but I think it's all one big enchilada, so to speak, if you're doing it right. Um, the first thing that I want to talk about that is a real shift, I think, in the industry. And it's not that I came up with this myself. I heard it from another YouTuber that's done quite well. And I think she's taught me a lot. I don't want to use her name because I don't know if she would want me to. But you might know who she is. Anyway, she has been talking about aesthetic selling and sourcing. So instead of always having to lean into brands and brand names, which can be hard to find certain brands. And we all know people do shop by brands, but they also shop by aesthetics. And just a couple of case studies that are worthy of mentioning. Um, when you think about Temu and Sheen and unbranded articles of clothing, and I'm talking mainly about clothing here, um, they're selling like crazy. And the way that Sheen and Temu hit the market so hard in the United States and did so well was they just sold based on trends. And, as someone that's retired and been around for a while, when I was in my 20s and 30s and spending a fortune on clothes, it was all about the brand. Brand was everything, and everybody wanted certain logos on their clothes and that type of thing, which is really funny to me now because I think things have shifted a lot. I know that a couple of weddings that I was invited to along the way, it used to be you would register at top department stores for your silver and your china, and it would be certain name brands and certain styles, and it would be very expensive. And now people, a lot of, younger people don't care about that stuff. They don't care about china and silver and name brand. They might like, you know, other stores that are more low key. I mean, I've known people that have, registered at Target or Crate and Barrel, and that's cool. And it's a shift. It's a real shift in the way things are, people look at things. And I don't think it's bad or good. It's just the way it is. And if you want to sell in this marketplace, you have to understand the consumer. And the consumers have changed a lot from my generation. They're much more utilitarian. They like style. They don't care as much about the name brand. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people that say, well, I know these jeans fit me great. These Lucky Brand jeans, for some reason, they fit me great. For me, it's Democracy. Democracy fits me great. And so I always try to buy Democracy jeans just because they fit me so well. So in that case, I will definitely always try to look for Democracy jeans. And I think people are doing that, but they're also saying, wow, that's beautiful. It's great material. It's on trend. It's reasonably priced. And so the good news for resellers is we don't have to just hang on to brands for dear life. And that's not always easy to find. You can go out and spend a whole day, go to 8 stores, and still maybe not find 5 top name brands. If you're like me, have had days like that. And I thought, oh my gosh, I spent all this time. But now that I've started dipping my toe into the aesthetic selling arena, it's really opened things up because, I can find something that's boho looking, that's popular. I can find baggy jeans. I can find all kinds of articles of clothing that are on trend and that are made well and look great. And as long as I use the right keywords, I can sell those just as easily as I can sell, Ralph Lauren or Mother or some of the name brands that people all look for. Eileen Fisher, that's one that, for my age group, Eileen Fisher, J. Jill, a lot of people that are a little bit on the older side, women like those brands. They're kind of tailored and, that type of thing. But, and I've learned a lot from the younger girls that are on YouTube about what their generation likes. And so I'm following them, and I've tested the waters, because I thought, well, maybe as an older reseller, I'm not tapped into that market, but I don't want to ignore that younger generation's market, because they are buying a lot of clothes. I know for me, I just happen to love clothes, but a lot of older people, they just buy a few clothes every year. They don't buy a lot. But, when you're younger and it's all, and you're beautiful, and it's like, oh, wow, I can't wait to spend the weekend shopping and buying clothes that I love so I can wear it to this event or that event or this party. And I used to be like that, so I get it, and it's exciting. But I think that aesthetic selling is changing the game. And it's already been proven. I'm not just talking about, somebody on YouTube taught me this, although they did, and they taught me a lot of great keywords, and I'm forever thankful. In fact, I've thought about sending them a thank you note because they don't know me, but I certainly have watched all their videos, and I feel like I know them. But Temu and Shein are huge companies, and they proved that point that you don't have to have a big name. I mean, in fact, when I first started doing this, I wouldn't buy Temu or Shein anything because I thought junk. That's what registered in my head. It's junk. But then I started really looking. That was just a bias that I had, and because it's fast fashion, it's not considered high quality. But honestly, they've got some, especially Shein's got some really cute things out there. I think Temu's probably not as many clothes. It's probably more hard goods. But you do see Shein everywhere, and you see a ton of unbranded stuff, that's doing the same thing. And I think it's really something you should look into. You should get some information. You've got to learn the keywords, because without the brand name in your listing, you've got to have those keywords to get people to come. Because if the kids are shopping and they're looking for, whimsy goth or preppy or log and look or whatever whatever they care about, whatever aesthetic they like, they're going to search with that aesthetic in mind. And so, or boho's a big one. So you need to know those words so that when you pick out an item, you already have a word that it fits in that category. Now, it takes a while to learn that. I mean, it took me a while, and I still feel clumsy about it. But I've got a little cheat sheet that I carry in my purse now. I carry little cheat sheets all the time. And I've gotten to where I'll try to say, okay, I'm going to look for dresses today, or I'm going to look for jeans. And, I'll take my cheat sheet and I'll focus on that, in the stores where they seem to have a lot of, inventory in that area. And that helps me learn too. I think that's a good way to expand your business, actually, is to say, okay, I know I'm comfortable with these things, and I can always fall back on that and look at that, and I've got that down, but I need to learn more about this. Like right now, I'm in the middle, and I think I've said this on other videos, but this may be your first one. If it is, welcome. But I'm learning more about men's clothes. And of course, I know a little bit about men's clothes. Of course, I have men in my life, and I know a little bit about men's clothes, but not like I know about women's clothes. It's different, So I'm trying to learn a lot more about men's clothes because I'm having great success selling them. And I find that it's easier for me to achieve a higher average sales rate with the men's clothes. So I'm really kind of leaning into that. I thought about children's clothes because they're so cute, but and some of them do go for, a decent price. But and when you think about it from a practical standpoint, kids grow out of their clothes really fast. So I'm sure there's always this huge need. but it sounded so specialized to me, I sort of didn't lean into it, although that's something I keep thinking about in the back of my mind that I should lean into a little bit more. Because when you're looking at clothes, you might as well look at kids' clothes, right, if they have them. But with 2026, I still think we don't quite know what's going to shake out. Depending on how the economy does and that type of thing. I do believe that a very smart tip is to follow the economy closely. And you may want to like adjust the percentages in your store. I might have said that on another video. If I did, I think it bears repeating. You know, if the economy gets really bad, you're going to really need a lot of bread and butter items in your store, and believe me, they'll do well if you have a lot of bread and butter items in your store. If the economy gets real bad, because people will be just looking for survival clothes and that type of thing, and there'll always be a few people looking for collectibles and gifts and things. I mean, there's the 1% is still a lot of people, and the 1% will have money to buy luxury items and that type of thing. So if you're into that, or you're into real high-end clothing, I don't think you need to give that up. But I just think that you might need to have a few more bread and butter than you do now, maybe, based on what the economy does and what the needs of the population will be. So that's something to think about too, because that's kind of what I'm doing. I started off, I was like, I was all about average sell-through rate. Yeah, I mean, not sell-through rate, but average sales price. I wanted to push that up and up and up. And I have started doing that, and I did it mainly by buying more men's clothes. That just automatically did it, which I thought was kind of cool. But now I don't think, I think at one point before, the election, before things really changed a lot, I was thinking much more about leaning into the luxury market more. But I think now I really would like to have maybe 70% of my items considered bread and butter, something that really anybody could afford. And then maybe have 30%, 25 to 30% of my items luxury items, so that I can still get some of those higher prices and still have a bottom though. I mean, when I first started, I didn't have any bottom. Now, but now, even with the bread and butter items, I want a bottom. In other words, I don't want to sell things for $15 because I can't make any money on that, even though I get, a lot of offers for a lot lower and that type of thing. And I have sold things for that. But once it gets down that low, it's like, I don't even want to bother with it, So that's something that I'm making changes, and I'm thinking about the economy. I'm trying to anticipate. Nobody really knows what's going to happen, but things are shifting, and they're shifting quickly. So we have to be ready for whatever happens. And the nice thing is, I think as a reseller, we're uniquely qualified and positioned to be able to provide the public with what they need for reasonable prices, which I can't say the same about retail markets. I think they're going to be struggling. Even the Targets of the world, but Target's probably going to be okay, although they've got a lot of boycotts against them right now and all kind of crazy stuff. But honestly, the higher price boutiques and things, they are going to struggle. So, I mean, I think we're in a nice position because we can change and shift. I mean, because I'm working with about 1,250 items, it's easy for me to shift my numbers fairly quickly. And I know it's a little harder if you've got, 6, 7, 8,000 in your inventory. That's a much bigger, it takes longer to adjust that type of thing. But you can always be thinking about it and start adjusting it a little bit at a time, which is what I've done with the men's clothes. Now, sometimes when I go out, it's like, I'm only buying men's clothes, So I'll do that, even though it's really hard because I love to look at women's clothes. But I did that for a couple of months where I was just buying mostly men's clothes, and that really changed things quickly for me with the small inventory that I have. Now, knowing the trends is key to aesthetic selling. And aesthetic selling, I think, is the answer for so many people that are struggling to find what they want. The aesthetic selling is going to save you. It's going to save your store, because you can always find things that are on trend because it's produced everywhere. And it's so much easier than finding a name brand, every day, or 3 or 4 or 5 of them. That's much harder. So I think aesthetic selling is the answer for a lot of us. And of course, you don't want to, if you run across a great name brand, that's just great. That's, cherry on top of the sundae. But in order to know your trends, you can watch YouTube videos, you can follow the fashion magazines, you can follow the fashion blogs or vlogs, you can go online and watch. But there's some real simple ways to do it. And I actually, in some ways, I think these are even better ways than watching, the fashion blogs and things, because I think there's some definite geography involved. People dress differently on the East Coast than they do on the West Coast. People dress differently in the big cities than they do in the rural areas. And people will tend to buy closer because of the shipping cost or whatever, or the perceived shipping cost. So I think you need to always think in terms. I'm not saying, like I'm in Georgia, I sell to California, I sell to Arizona. I mean, I do get sales out there quite more than I would have ever expected. But most of my sales are on the East Coast or the Midwest, but a lot of them are Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, New York. So many of my sales are in that pocket. And those and people in those areas dress a little differently than people do in California. I mean, I'm talking, like for instance, I don't sell ski clothing. I mean, I know there's some ski places up north, in the Northeast, but it's not the soft snow. It's not the snow everybody wants. So, I mean, I just don't know many people that are into skiing. When I was in college, because I had friends that were from all over the country, I did try skiing. It was a disaster. It was way too cold for me. But anyway, I don't know much about it, and I'm not going to pick up ski clothing because I just don't think many people around here are up for buying ski clothing. But there's tons of people buying for golf, and people golf all year round here. So, whereas, if you're up north, you're probably not golfing. If you're, in Chicago in the winter, you're probably not golfing. So it's all dependent on the area, and you need to do your research in your area and watch what people are wearing. If you want to sell to the young, the 20 and 30 something girls that love to buy clothes and spend money on, high fashion, look around and look at those girls and see what they're wearing when you see them out, and that's what I do. I especially love to do it with shoes because I love shoes. I'll look and see, and it's like sometimes I have been out and it's like I'll count 10 people and 5 of them will have on Nikes, and I'll think, oh my gosh. But the problem with Nikes, of course, is that they're, they're extremely style specific, but they're also saturated. And so sometimes that'll get you in trouble, but it'll at least give you an idea about the style, what are people wearing? And like in the Southeast, there's a huge preppy element. Even people that aren't rich still like preppy clothes. And it's because it's kind of a conservative area and whatever. I'm not always saying I like that about my area, but it's just the truth of the matter. And I like preppy clothes, even though I'm not rich. So, it's just kind of a conservative area. But if you go to New York City or up in those areas or Boston or whatever, well, Boston's real preppy. But, if you go to New York City or if you go to Los Angeles, that's going to be more of a high fashion area. And you can check out what the kids are wearing there because it's all different, Check it out. You can just visually check it out yourself. And it might be even better than looking at fashion vlogs and things because you don't know that, a lot of times those really wild things that are so interesting and special and high design, high fashion as they call it, there may not be many people really buying them. And, unless you're like, I don't know, super wealthy and maybe running in a certain little group. maybe in LA or maybe in New York or, maybe in, I don't know where, maybe DC. But so I think looking around is one of the best ways. And also, of course, eBay has a wealth of information. You can always go on eBay and let's say you want your average sales price. Like with me, I'm doing bread and butter. I'll look up, okay, women's tops, uh, you know, price range from 25 to 35. That's like a bread and butter price range. And then I'll go through and see what the top sellers are. And I'll count them and I'll do tons of research that way. And then I'll pull it all together. I'll listen to people on YouTube, see what they're selling. A lot of people talk about what they sell. That's something I actually would like to start doing on my YouTube videos. I just have to figure out technically how to show everything without just carrying it out, because I honestly am not really good figuring out editing and all that. That's why I just get on YouTube and I just say my words and then I get off, because I haven't figured out how to edit very well. But I know with me, I have to jump into it and just slowly learn how to do all the little things. So, but I'm so appreciative when I can go on and watch what other people are selling, especially clothes. And Google Trends. Now, there's something interesting. You can go on Google Trends and see what people are searching for. That's a great site to just kind of get an overview of the country, what's going on, and that type of thing. And you can, see what people are buying. There's just a lot of places to research, and you really have to get good at that, I think. And if you always want to be on top of things, I think you have to do that yourself. You can get advice from other people, but you don't know where they live, whatever, and your area could be quite different than their area. So it's smart, I think, to do your own research specific to your area if you can. I think the third reselling game changer that I think is really important, because so much of this is you're on your own, you're by yourself a lot. I mean, you might be out in the world and there's people in the store with you, or there's people here and there, but your business, for the most part, if you're a small business person like I am, or part-time, you're doing 90% of everything by yourself. And because of that, I think it's real easy to lose your way if you compare yourself to everybody on YouTube. We can't compare ourselves because we have different goals, different motivation, and different assets to offer to it, right? And we have to remember that. Plus, like my main objective is I do have a set amount of money I want to earn. And I want to have a lot of fun, and I want to have a lot of freedom. I don't want to be tied down to this business every second of the day. I don't want a 8-hour-a-day business at this point in my life. So if I start comparing myself to some of the kids or some of the younger people that are, making a living and they've got children to feed and kids to send to college and all that, I could feel real sort of humbled by it. You're thinking, wow, I'm not doing very much. Look at that, But that's never a good idea. And every time you compare yourself to somebody else, it usually, I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't have goals. You should, and you should have activity goals. That's what I would say, because nobody can control income. But we can control activities, and activities lead to income. And of course, sales through rate, everybody talks all about sales through rate. And I don't know if this is your first video, your 10th video, your 5,000th video that you've watched, but sales through rate will always be the most important number. And you have got to live and die by that. And if you ignore sales through rate, which is basically comparing the number of listings to the number of sales over a 90-day period for any item that you're thinking about buying, as long as that is 50% or higher, or even higher, some people want 70, 80, 90%, 100%. I would say 50% should be the minimum. You don't buy anything less than that unless you just have a ton of storage room and you don't care if it sits for a long time. But I'm not in that position. Some people are, though. I think some people just say, well, this is going to sell for a lot at some point, so I'm going to buy it, even though it might take 2 years to sell. I don't buy like that, but some people do. But if you're like most of us, you want to churn it. You want to, bring it in, sell it, get it out. And because that's the best guarantee of income too, is to know it's going to sell fairly quickly. So sell-through rate is always part of the equation. I feel like I beat that to death and everybody else beats it to death, but that's because it's the most important number you need to know in order to succeed, I think. But these other things, setting activity goals for sourcing, listing, average sales price that you're shooting for, and then sell-through rate. Those are the 4 things. If you can have goals like every day or every week, however you want to do it, I want to source this many items. I want to list this many items. I want an average sales price of X for the items that I get. And then I want to achieve a sell-through rate. I don't want to buy anything in sourcing unless it has X sell-through rate. I think if you stick to that, then the numbers and the revenue will take care of themselves. And I think you need to network with other resellers because it is a lonely game and we all need encouragement sometimes. I'm not talking, you don't want to get into a situation where it's kind of like a bitch fest, where everybody's complaining and whatever. You don't want that. You don't want that. Don't find those people, or if you find them, just walk away from them. But find some people that are doing a little bit better than you are, or that are at least doing the same, that are as motivated as you are, and that are positive, and they can have a good time with it and laugh at themselves. And you can help each other. You can go shopping together sometimes. Maybe if you're selling in different categories, they might pick something up for you, or you might pick something up for them. Some people don't want to deal with hard goods, but you might sell hard goods. Like I sell, some hard goods if they're not too big. I like to sell some sporting goods if they're not too big. So, you can always find a couple of buddies that you can encourage each other, and you can talk about things, the changes that are happening. Everybody's been talking about eBay and the promotion thing. And, it's nice to have somebody to just discuss things with in person for a change. And so I think if you do those 5 things, and just to go back over them, number 1, lean into aesthetic selling as a top sourcing tool. It's so much easier to find things on trend than it is to find brand names. So lean into it, learn as much as you can, learn the keywords. I think that will really make it so much easier and so much more fun to source. You got to know the trends, though, so that you can lean into the trends, which means you're going to have to do your research. You're going to have to stay on top of trend research. Google trends, research on eBay, read fashion vlogs, and just be an observer. Every time you're out in the world, what are the kids wearing? Or what are the people your age wearing? What are the people in your area wearing? Watch, be observant. How many, do all the men have sneakers on? Does anybody wear dress shoes anymore? Sometimes I feel like asking that because I sell sneakers so much faster than everything else. I sell some casual shoes like loafers, but they're casual. Used to be, I remember my dad wore wingtips all the time. I think I have sold 1 pair of wingtips, and I just stopped buying them because I had several pair, because I thought that's what men wore to work sometimes. And I still think they sell some, but they sell slowly. But anyway, you got to stay on top of the trends. That's number 2. Number 3, stop comparing yourself to everybody else. You're different. Your goals are different. Your objectives are different. Your assets are different. You're in a different part of the country. That's all you need to know. And because you're that different, comparing yourself to other people may be disheartening or may not really give you any valuable information, quite honestly. Number 4, set activity goals. set sourcing goals, listing goals, average sales rate goal, and a sell-through rate goal for yourself. If you have goals in place and you hit those goals, it will show in your sales. You can't control sales, but you can control the activity that leads to sales. And the fifth thing I think that'll just make you so much happier and make you feel like you're part of something and you're not all by yourself all the time is to network with other resellers. Find some positive influences, the people that smile more and complain less, and get to know them, cultivate those relationships, and you will enjoy it more. Well, I'm signing off right now. I wish you the best this week as you're out there shopping. Thanks for spending some time with me. Bye-bye.